Speak now. Oh. Hi everyone, can we just take our seats, please? Realised that it wasn't on. Do you want me to click you on one? Oh, yes, that would be good. Thank you. Okay, welcome back everybody. I hope you enjoyed your lunch, and we are delighted to be into the afternoon session. We've got a few extra guests expected because my executive colleagues are joining just for this session as well, so they're now filtering into the room. So I am absolutely delighted to introduce Monique, who is leadership coach and consultant and ex-NHS executive director. So I'm really interested in hearing from Monique, and I'm sure you all will be as well. So I'm delighted to hand over to her, who will say more about herself, I'm sure. Thank you, Monique.
Thank you. Oh, good afternoon, everyone. I hope you can hear me okay. I will confess that I'm a little bit raspy. I lost my voice on Sunday evening. So I have been praying, manifesting, affirming that it would come back for today. And I think it's good enough. It's good enough. But do give me a wave or a shout if you can't hear me. So thank you so much to Emma for inviting me today. And as I arrived, she said, oh, my exec colleagues will be joining today. I said, no pressure. No pressure at all. No pressure at all. But I think it's lovely for you all to hopefully have some time with your exec colleagues as well. How often do you have all of your execs in the room? So before I go any further, first of all, to thank you all for being here. You know, when people say they've got that after lunch slot, where I heard you had a lovely shepherd's pie, but you might be feeling a little bit sluggish, okay? Come with me on the journey as I talk to you this afternoon. So why am I here? Well, two reasons. One is because, as Emma said, I had a 20-year career in the NHS. I am born and bred in London. My NHS career was all in London, and I started off as a PA. So, 23 years ago now, I think it was. I started off as a PA, did 10 years as a commissioner, and then, as people say, I moved into the dark side of the provider world. And I worked for a community trust in London, and the last 5 years of my time in the NHS, I was a Director of Strategy and Transformation. So I had quite a big portfolio jointly responsible for the cost improvement programme with the Chief Finance Officer, responsible for bringing in all new business. We were a community trust, so it wasn't like the acute where your contracts are your contracts and you're on PBR. It was very different for us. We could lose our contracts. So thinking about how we delivered our services and high quality was important, but we also had to protect and try and win new contracts to keep our income afloat, and I was responsible for that. I also had the strategy brief, so where were we heading, working with commercial partnerships, so bringing innovation into the organisation as well, but not losing that focus that we were here to provide safe, high-quality care. And when COVID came along, I was the lead COVID recovery director for the first 15 months of the pandemic. But in 2021, I made a decision to leave the NHS. One of the main reasons was I've always had a big passion for building dynamic, diverse teams and supporting colleagues on their leadership journey to really develop as the leader as who you are and to help people find out what they're great at and pursue that and thrive in it. I'm very much a leader who wants to hear from everybody, who sees it as we are all on a journey together and really believe in mutual respect. It's a value that I live by. It's how I parent and it's how I led people. And I realised when I made a decision to leave, because I didn't want to be a CEO, I think it's too political personally in the NHS. I don't think you can really lead in the way you want to. That's another conversation. So for me, it was either stay where I was, and I was good at what I did from the feedback I got, but I'm a mum of 3. And my little boy hadn't even started school when I got my director job. And so I knew I wanted to get a little bit more balance, but also really focus on what I felt were my skills. And I'm going to ask you a question about yours in a minute. What I felt I was great at. And as I said, that was about leadership development. So I didn't have a grand plan when I left. I didn't have it all sorted out. But lo and behold, here I am. And what I really focus on, and if I boil it down for you, is about building brave, inclusive leadership capability and confidence. So I work with organisations like yourselves, I work with individuals, we deliver coaching, we deliver workshops, I come out and do keynotes like this, but what we really, really focus on is supporting you to be brave. You know, how do you put all of what you hear about leadership, authentic leadership, compassionate leadership, leading as who you are, bring your whole self to work, all of those buzzwords and phrases that we hear, how do you really start to put that into practice? And more importantly, how do you do that when the fire is really hot? You know, when it feels like you've got -0 hours, when it feels like, if anyone remembers Tetris, if you remember a Game Boy, and the Tetris screen fills up, doesn't it, if you can't move the blocks? So when your in-tray or your inbox or your workload feels like that, how do you really lead compassionately, authentically, and bravely when it feels like that? And unfortunately, in the NHS at the moment, all too often, it may feel quite complex and quite challenging, and I'm never going to clear the inbox. So for me, the work that we do is really about how do we support you to lead bravely? What are those practical insights and advice I can share from my journey, both how I progressed my career, but how I led teams, but also when you might be the only one. So here you have the One Team Conference, and I hope it does what it says on the tin. But you may be in environments where you know you want to lead a certain way, and what you see around you or what you see above you might be different. It may be that you are different. You know, your characteristics, your demographics may be different to what's around you. How do you really show up then and lead by example when it's like that? So this afternoon, I just want to talk you through some key theme areas. I don't use too many slides. I use them as just a little guide. Oops, if I go the right way. Let's see, what did I do? Sorry. Okay, Greg, stay here with me, okay? I'm joking. So, key themes for today. First one, knowing what you're great at, okay? I want to talk to you a little bit about that. I hope you've got pen and paper or phone somewhere you could take notes, because we'll have a little bit of an exercise to do here as well. Building trust and confidence. So what do I mean by that? And why does that underpin what I'm speaking about in relation to how you may be leading yourself and leading others? And then before we finish up, like I said, this is about putting things into practice. So how do you actually lead by example? Okay, Greg, shall I just use these instead? Let me see. Did that work? Yay. Okay. So I want to start off with speaking about knowing what you're great at. And I deliberately use this word, great, okay? And I am going to ask you to do this little exercise in a moment. But why do I speak about that? Now, if I talk about traditional British culture, quite often, if you talk about what you're great at, you know, this is what I bring to the table, this is what I'm about, it can come across, some people feel like it's arrogant, like you're blowing your own trumpet. Why would I want to do that? Now, I'm not suggesting you just walk into a room and start banging it out there. This is what I'm great at. I'm not saying that at all. But what I am speaking about is, if you don't tell anyone what you're great at, how will they know? And when we think about leadership and we think about career progression, you've actually been really clear, not just about what you do, but how you do it. Quite often when we're applying for jobs or we're thinking about, you know, you're having a look at a person's spec and what it might say, you know, you go through that person's spec, you look at the essentials and you think, yeah, I could do that. How often do you think about what you're great at, what you excel at? And how often do you communicate that in a how? So if I think about a typical example here, I'm a great communicator. I'm good at leading teams. Well, how? Why? What is it about that you do really well? You know, I'd like you to start feeling more comfortable with talking about what you're great at. But let me give you a rationale why first. 2 reasons. First one being, like I said, opportunity. So if we are talking about progression, we are talking, so if there's anyone in the room here today who is thinking about that next step, what might be right for you, where you want to head to, I'm really ready. actually letting colleagues know, and it's particularly your seniors, we've got the execs here today, okay, letting them know, what is it you bring to the table? What are you great at? You know, what's got you to where you are? Why do you think you're ready? Don't wait for the interview. Let them know now, and let them know why you're telling them, because actually I'm really good at this and I'd love to do more of it. When the fire is hot and we're under pressure and organisations are under pressure, do you know how good it is as a senior leader to know that there's someone who says, actually, I'm really good at programme management. I am really good at engaging our frontline teams. I have set up new systems in X, Y, and Z before. I really understand how we've moved that data point forward, and I'd like to share it with others. Do you know how good it is as a senior leader when someone comes to you and says, I'm really good at that. Can I do more of it? Can I help? Can I get involved? Can I be part of it? So letting people know what you're great at. When we're under pressure, you can offer that skill, but people can also come to you for it. When you're under pressure, and if something's gone wrong, okay, it's gone wrong. You've made a mistake, we're not where we need to be. I described before that avalanche, you know, everything's coming down on me. When you're feeling like that, or if you're feeling depleted, you know, actually it's been a really heavy month or quarter, my tank feels really empty, or that Tetris screen is completely full. Leaning into what you're great at can sometimes give you a little bit of energy, can give you a little bit of self-motivation, can build your confidence back up, because especially if something's gone wrong and you're responsible, you know, you feel knocked by it. It could be that you've stepped into a new role even, and you've bitten off more than you can chew. I've definitely been there. My goodness me. I made some big jumps in my career, and it was marvelous on paper, but actually, when I got those jobs, baptism of fire, you know, and I really struggled for the first 6 months, not remembering to lean into what I'm great at. So I'm asking you, and I'm going to give you a few moments. I want you to have a think about 5 things that you would describe that you are really great at. And if you struggle with this, if it feels uncomfortable, I'll give you a little cheat. You can bring it down 1 notch to what you're really good at, okay? Just 1 notch. But I want you to get comfortable with thinking about what you're great at. And when I say this, it doesn't mean that you have to be perfect at it. Being great at something doesn't mean that it's perfect, doesn't mean that you nail it first time. If you're not sure, it's a space you've not been to before in your mind, think about what colleagues always say about you. Think about what close friends and family always feedback about you. What do they say they love about you? What do people always come to you for? Okay? So I'm going to be quiet for a few minutes, and I'm going to ask you, please, to just write down for me 5 things that you are really great at. They might be related to work. It might be you at home, in your family world, to friends, and you are allowed to talk. What am I doing wrong? I can see some people looking at me. Come on. Come on. I'm just going to give you 2 more minutes, okay? If you're struggling to get to 5, still write down the ones that have come to mind for you, okay? And you can take it home as homework if you haven't got to 5 for me, okay? Okay. Can I bring us back together? How did we get on? Can I ask that question? Did anybody get 5 down? Excellent, excellent. Anybody with 4? Okay, a few more. 3 things that you're great at? 2? 1? Any zeros? Who's brave enough to tell me if you had none? Okay. Anyone willing to tell me how you found that exercise? I'd love to hear from somebody. How did you find that exercise? Who'd like to say? Awkward. Okay, tell me why. Okay, not used to doing that. Okay. Did you buy my explanation? Sort of? Okay, okay. Because it's not something, what you said is fair. Because it's not usually the way we will think. Tell me if I'm wrong, we usually focus on our weaknesses or our gaps, okay? There's nothing wrong with that in terms of understanding what you don't bring to the table, right? I think that's just as important. This isn't me. This isn't what I'm about. I'd also ask you to start to feel comfortable with saying that as well. So if you feel more comfortable, if you said, Monique, if you asked me what my gaps were, I'd list them 1 to 20 for you, no problem. Okay, it's not a bad thing, but what I would say is, how many of those gaps do you really need to fill and focus on? Or how many of them they're just not what you're about? It's just not what you do. It's just not what you bring to the table. Now, the reason why I say, I'm going to come back to what you're great at, but the reason why I say that is because if you know what your gaps are, and you are a leader, you've got some responsibility for a team, look for those gaps in your team. Look for those gaps in who you're trying to recruit. Because sometimes we recruit what we know, what we like, what we're comfortable with, okay? But I mentioned that thing about dynamic, diverse teams. Why was I successful? I was successful because I had dynamic, diverse teams, and I deliberately built them that way, time and time again. I had to be brave, though, because I needed a maverick. We were running big transformation programs. They were almost impossible to deliver. Never had enough money, never had enough resource. The CCG at the time, not ICB, wanted everything done yesterday. I needed mavericks who would bring something different and bring some energy into the space. But my goodness me, line managing a maverick is a nightmare, right? Absolute nightmare. Trying to keep them in line, you're tearing your hair out, right? So, but I knew that's what I needed because I'm not a maverick. I'm not an ideas person. I know that's not what I do. You've got the idea. I am absolutely brilliant at creating that narrative, explaining to people what it means for them, bringing everybody on the journey and driving that change. That's my bag, and I know that. But I'm not the ideas person. I'm not the innovator. I don't mind saying that because that's what I'd look for in who I would try to bring into my team. So knowing your gaps is okay as long as you're not beating yourself over the head about it. Be honest about the gaps that you think you do need to fill, for your job now. Let's be honest about that. Talk about that in your appraisal. But the ones that it's just not you, forget it. Unless you're looking at it, like I said, to build the team, let's leave that alone. Let's come back to what you do bring and sharing that with people. So my sales pitch, if you like, to you is, I'd encourage you, if you wrote down 5 for me, bit of stretch now, I want you to think about 5 people that you can share that with. You know, that you can have that conversation with. Look, I did this exercise at our One Team conference, and I was asked to take on the challenge of just sharing 5 things that I'm really great at. If I share mine with you, would you share yours with me? Yeah? And if you struggled with it, go and ask people that you trust. Actually, I really struggled with this. What would you say? You've worked with me for a while. You know me. What would you say that you think I bring to the table really well? What do you always come to me for? And write it down. Because actually, why am I labouring this point? Because if I'm asking you to lead bravely, I'm asking you, you're going to see, I'm going to be asking you to really lead from the front, and take things forward. Some of the things that we always hear, you will have heard exec colleagues, I'm sure, speaking about. Sometimes we can be looking around the table, and thinking it's for somebody else to do. And actually, if you are all leaders here, no matter what level you're at, it's for us to take that on and to stand up and be counted. Yeah? So me encouraging you, it's okay. Stand up straight with what you're great at. Pull up on that. Share it. Get some confidence from it. That's okay. Like I said, if you're doing it just because it's all about me, that's where the arrogance comes in. But I have a saying about be yourself, back yourself, and make it happen. And that back yourself bit, I always say very simply, and my dad said this to me, if you don't back yourself, who will? So if you are a leader, if you are running a team, if you are a senior manager, if you're not backing yourself, you're not likely to come across as 100% credible. You're not likely to get the buy-in that you could. So it's not arrogance. It's about having that self-assurance. When you hear your senior leaders speak, I'm sure you're expecting them to have a level of self-assurance, to have a level of gravitas in how they're speaking to you. And I'm not suggesting you fake your behavior, not at all. I'm going to speak to you in a moment about leading as who you are. But actually, if you're great at something, it's not a problem with sharing that. It's not a problem with standing tall with that. People come on board when they feel confidence in a leader, when they feel assurance from a leader, when actually they feel like they can learn from you, from the things that you are great at. Okay, so 5 things that you're great at. Okay, if you're all right with that, go and share them with 5 people. By end of next week, maybe I'd say. If you found it hard, pick 2 or 3 trusted colleagues who you could speak with and ask them what they love and know about you and what they'd share. And I'd like you to go back to your list. So when you are feeling, like I said, you may have been knocked, you may be feeling under a lot of pressure, just feeling low, tanks running on empty, go back to that list and revisit it, okay? And lean into it if you need to as well. Start to do more of those things on that list. So I said I was going to talk to you about what are you great at, and then I said I was going to talk to you about building trust and confidence. So why am I speaking about that? Well, it connects to what I was just finishing up about. When I was a director, the portfolio I held, I didn't really have autonomy and authority over most of the workforce. I also was the organisation's representative for system working. So I was the person who went to most of the system place level meetings with my CEO. Didn't have autonomy or authority in there either. It was quite a level playing field. In fact, as the community provider, we were often the poor relation, okay? And our acute colleagues would be telling us what they wanted us to do and when they wanted us to do it by, okay? That was a common situation. So really having to build trust and confidence went 2 ways for me. Building it within the organisation, working with clinical teams, I had no autonomy over. Yes, I was a director, but I wasn't their portfolio director. And then working outside with partners, my trust was really small. So actually attracting innovation and commercial partners was really hard. I had to really think about what is it about us that you'd want to come and work with us for. So building that trust and confidence. Well, how did I do it? So number one, listening to understand. If you've heard me speak before, you will hear me harp on about listening. One of the best things I ever did as a senior leader was to listen. When I got my first senior commissioning job, I can remember the three most senior commissioning managers that I would now be responsible for were the same age as my parents. And I thought, oh my goodness, how am I going to manage this? I was always one of the youngest managers when I stepped up. How am I going to manage this dynamic? They were holding multi-million-pound commissioning portfolios themselves. I've parachuted in as this new head of commissioning. They can see, it's quite apparent, that I am young enough to be their daughter. How am I going to manage this dynamic? And what I leaned on was mutual respect. So I knew how to lead change, and I knew how to lead change at a big level, and I had a good reputation. But these were their portfolios, and these were their budgets. And actually, I had to respect the autonomy that they had, even though I was the head of that commissioning team. And what I did was I engaged them. I actually created a new meeting, a senior leaders meeting, and we met once a week. And it wasn't to detract from our junior staff, not at all, but I wanted to involve them in some of the decisions and conversations that were happening as a matter of respect. It wasn't about closing the door, oh, I'm the big boss in town, now let's close the door, it's nothing to do with you. Quite the opposite. Although I made the ultimate decision, I built trust by listening to them. And when I say listening to understand, when I asked their opinion, I listened. I didn't listen to defend. I didn't listen to respond. Sometimes, I don't know if anyone in here does it, I can remember when I was a younger manager, I'd be talking to junior members of staff and my mouth would start moving before they'd even finished what they were saying, because I knew what I wanted to say, I knew where I wanted to take them, I knew where I wanted the conversation to go, and. I wasn't really listening to them. And that power of listening to understand, especially if you are a senior leader, not to defend. Because sometimes we will go and speak with frontline teams and we don't like what we hear. We don't like it. You might be the person who gets shot. You're the messenger and you've got shot. It all gets landed in your lap and it's quite heavy going. But actually, the ability to be able to listen, especially when you don't have all the answers, especially when what they're saying might be right, and actually we've got something wrong here. It's really hard to do that. But what I know from experience is, more often than not, colleagues might not like what you had to say, and they might not like what's happened, but they will respect your honesty, and they will respect the fact that you have come to listen, and if you follow it through and feed back, because how often do we hear from colleagues, well, someone came out to see me and months later we've heard nothing, we filled out this survey and nobody's ever told us what's happened. Sometimes as leaders, when we can't solve it, when we haven't got the answer, when we can't wrap that feedback up in a nice shiny bow or a nice slide deck, we don't send it, we don't say it, we just leave it. I'd ask you not to do that. I'd ask you, even if that response is, we don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. We haven't sorted it yet. We missed the deadline. Go back and face them. Because as I said, people might not like it, but they'll usually respect your honesty. And that's why listening to understand is so important. What is it teams are really asking you for? Are they asking you to solve the impossible? Or are they asking to be heard? Because quite often people want to be heard. They want to know that you've understood where they're coming from. They quite often understand that you can't solve the impossible, that some of the things that come down from the center, from the system, are nigh on impossible. We know that, and they usually know that. But what they'll respect is you taking that time to listen. So if you say your door is open, then make sure it is open, all right? And it's okay to say, I can't talk to you right now, but let's book a time in. It might sound really trivial, what I'm speaking about, but having led so much complex change at different levels, I particularly draw on when I was the COVID recovery director. And I don't know if it was the same for exec colleagues here, but I can remember Boris would be on the lectern at 8 o'clock in the evening, right? And we'd all tune in. And the next morning, we'd listen and go, oh my gosh, that means we're now going to have to change this policy, that policy, that policy, that policy. And you'd know it, right? You'd be sitting there. And sometimes as execs, we'd be on the phone, director of HR would be emailing around, and we'd have an all-staff call in the morning. And we didn't get a heads up before anybody else. We heard it at that same time. And you'd have to face staff to say, look, yes, you're right. This is going to mean changes, but we're working through it just as you've heard it as well. And as I said, people might not like it, but they'll respect that you've been able to face them and that you've been honest about it. So listening to understand, being honest about where things are, really underpins building trust and confidence. It connects to understanding your people and where they're at. Okay, so the bridge on this is, where are your people at? How are they really feeling? You know, what is it you're trying to get them to do? Is it more of the same? Is it something different? But really being able to lean into that and listen, because it will tell you, where are they at? How are they feeling? And what do they need? I mentioned COVID, and I remember with our team, we were a corporate team, so we didn't need to be in the offices all the time. So we pivoted overnight, as many teams did, to going remote. And we were a very close-knit team. And I remember, as an exec, talking lots and lots and lots about well-being and how important staff well-being was. And actually, you know, on every call, we'd say the same things. We had all the well-being offers, etc. But what we wasn't really doing was understanding if these were right for our staff. We wasn't really connecting to that. What we would do is, if people said they couldn't access something, we'd just pile more stuff over the top. And actually, one of my junior members of staff said, do you know, can I make a suggestion for our team? We're such a close-knit team. We've got people working at home. We've got people working in environments that are not suitable for home working, actually. It's really important that we have a daily check-in. And I was thinking, well, how are we going to manage that? How are we going to coordinate that? What will we do? And she said, I think we could just put a 10-minute call in every morning. And whoever's available to get on that call jumps on that call. And I'd like to suggest 3 questions we ask, you know, and people can answer it. How are you feeling? What is your workload looking like? One thing you're looking forward to today. And in the midst of COVID and how mad it was and how dramatic it was, how painful it was, how frightening it was, actually being able to come back to that core of what's a real well-being check-in on a daily basis. And for me and my assistant director, being able to eyeball the team on that call, one of us would always be on the call, even if we could only stay for 5 minutes. Just being able to see colleagues' faces told us something about the mood music, where people were at and how they were feeling. And sometimes you think that 10 minutes was like gold dust in terms of what it told us, but also it allowed the team to connect. And it allowed people to be honest about where they were at. Now, sometimes people didn't feel up for working, you know. Sometimes people were, I'm not great today, but I am well enough to work. And what we could do was follow up after the call. Now, it's a really basic example. Why do I mention it? Because it came from a junior member. Because we listened. We just asked that question. Where were they at? What did they need? Sometimes we think it's going to be something massive as leaders. We don't go and ask the questions because we're frightened that we can't solve it, so we don't ask. And actually, that's where we get that disconnect. So building trust and confidence, sometimes it is about you being brave and asking that simple question, where are you at? How are you feeling about this? You know, how do you feel about working in our team? Is there anything I can do to improve your working with us here? Is there anything more we can do to support you? You don't have to understand it all. When we're talking about authentic leadership, when we're talking about inclusive leadership, I know it can be scary. You feel like you need to understand it all. You know, if I don't understand it, I don't want to go there. Asking those questions gives you the opportunity to know where people are at, to know what they might need, and for you to be able to identify the help and support that you might need to help them. So please don't be afraid to ask your teams. And let's think about managing upwards. I'd ask you also to be brave about expressing it, what you really need, to your managers as well. Sometimes we talk a lot about what. I need more people, I need this. And sometimes there's that connection about what do you really need? You know, how often as leaders have you taken time to think about your needs as a leader? You know, what is it you need? What's going to help you to lead bravely or authentically? Is it something that your manager can help you with? Well, you might not know unless you ask. So I'm not here today to talk to you about lots of leadership theory. That sounds really great. You walk out of the room, doesn't really apply to what I'm facing. I'm here to talk to you about leading bravely when it is challenging, you know, when it is difficult, and really thinking about what are some of these building blocks that can help you to connect to that. Now, fundamentally, all right, Greg, I'm going to try again, okay? Let's see. Okay. So, fundamentally, though, underneath all of this is really about leading as who you are. And I didn't pull it out as a theme because it underpins all of what I'm speaking to you about. The secret of my own success was because I led as who I was. Now, my challenge was, I was the only one in the room most of the time. When I became a director, I was the youngest director. I was the only black director at the time. I'm a mum of 3. My parents were teenage parents. I am not the average person you would see in an NHS boardroom. But I was good at what I did. And my CEO wanted dynamic difference. The platform was burning. The transformation program was failing. She needed something different. She completely shook up the exec team and she put this job out. And I knew I could do the job on paper, but I'd never been an exec, obviously. And I wasn't even an AD at the time. I'd worked at an AD level before, but I wasn't an AD in this organization. But I knew I could do that job. And I knew I could do it based on how I'd led change before and how I'd led people and how I'd led budgets. All my experience as a commissioner, I knew I could do that job and I knew I could make the difference in the program. And so remember me saying about back yourself? I had to back myself to go in there. But what I also knew was I had to go into that interview as me. I couldn't go in there and pretend to be someone that I wasn't. Yes, I did put on my suit. Yes, I did do my role play practices because I talk a lot with my hands and I didn't want my hands going all over the place. I speak a little bit fast when I get nervous. So yes, I ironed those creases out. But what I did, I went into that room and I stood there and I spoke with them as if I was already the director of transformation. I owned it. I spoke exactly to what I felt I could do, how I would work with partners, how I'd represent the organization. I knew the board, the panel was my chair, my CEO, non-exec, the chair of the CCG. They needed to close their eyes and be able to see me, Monique, representing the trust on my own as a corporate director. That's what I needed to convince them of. But I was adamant that they needed to see it as me doing it. And that has always been what's got me here, standing here and talking to you. This is me. If you speak to me when I come off the stage, what you see is what you get. And it's really important to me, of all the work I do, to encourage you to lead as who you are. You cannot do your best work if you are not leading as who you are. Now, you may be in environments, I don't know enough about the trust. So Emma, if I'm treading the wrong way, steer me straight. But sometimes you'll come into organizations where you don't see anyone who looks like you, acts like you, and it can feel quite daunting to then go, actually, I'm going to show up as who I am. But that's your secret sauce. You know, I asked you at the beginning of today about those 5 things that you were great at. And actually, I believe that this organisation will need that. I think the NHS needs people standing up as who they are more than ever before. And if you do lead as who you are, it's easier, okay? It's a lot harder to put the mask on, whatever that mask may be if you're wearing one. I've spoken to colleagues who tone down their accent because they work, especially down south where I'm from. When we've had colleagues join us from the north, some of them have shared with me that they tone their accent down because they think that they are perceived as less intelligent down in the south. Yeah? I've had colleagues say, I don't bring in my food to work. My food smells quite strong, it's spicy. I've seen some colleagues sometimes sort of edge away or turn their nose up. It's put me off doing that. I don't speak about my background. I said my parents were teenage parents. People don't speak about that because the colleagues who were there with them, nobody's come from that background. I don't want people to know that about me. I don't want to get found out. I don't say it. I'm not saying to you that you need to now step out of the room and start telling everyone everything about you. That's your choice, okay? That's your choice. But what I am saying is, whatever it is about you that's different, that makes you uniquely who you are. And actually, one of the other things I do, I'm co-founder of Bravery in the Boardroom, and that is a movement about seeing boardrooms more representative of the communities and staff they serve. And so actually, if you are underrepresented, if you are different to what you see, are you there in the senior leadership, in the boardroom, or just below that? Do you see yourself there? Because you're here, you're part of this community. So actually, if you don't see that representation, could that representation be you? And if you are hiding it, how do we know how many other colleagues in here, across the organisation, who may have similar backgrounds, similar interests, but they're also diluting it down? So what if we all start to lead more authentically? You know, what if we all start to show up a little bit more as who we are? Then we can all do that together. So leading by example is where I want to land this plane before I finish, okay? And because if you are a leader and you're asking people to do things, the number one thing is to back your talk. So for all of what I've said here, if you went and spoke to someone I used to work with and they said, oh, she was nothing like that, I don't know what she's talking about, you'd be like, what the hell, right? Actually, being honest about what you're great at, being honest about what you're not, back in that talk, if you're asking colleagues to look after their well-being, are you doing it? If you're asking colleagues to lead authentically, are you doing it? If you're asking colleagues to not work late into the evening, are you still sending your emails after 9 o'clock and not using a delay timer as a secret? Okay? But all jokes aside, okay, leading by example is the biggest thing. So listening to understand, building that trust and confidence, excelling in what you're great at, but leading by example is the number one thing. You know, we've all got different things in our background and in our stories, okay? It doesn't mean that you can't be great at your job. It really doesn't mean that, you know? And I'm grateful that I'm a testimony to that. You know, I worked hard, but I also had inclusive, supportive managers who saw my talent and encouraged me and gave me a fair crack at the whip. I know not everybody gets that, and it's why I have the Bravery in the Boardroom movement to try and change that. And so we see more inclusive leadership. But actually, I know this organisation needs you. But I just want to bring us to a point, and I'm going to share a short video before I finish up. Leading by example also means being accountable. It also means being accountable. And, you know, I know the organisation has the impact strategy. I know you have your Thrive conversations. These are opportunities for you to bring the things that are in that strategy to life, to be authentic in encouraging those Thrive conversations. And being accountable means that actually, as much as you're embodying the behaviours and values that you're expected to have across the trust, it's also that you hold people accountable too. Because if the trust is on a journey, and I know this is your second year of this conference, if the trust is on a journey and actually you want to see teams thriving and growing and coming together as really one team, then we also have to call out when behaviours are unacceptable, when people are not upholding the organisation's values. And that can be really difficult, especially if someone's good at their job. You know, actually, they always deliver the goods, but their behaviour is appalling. Sometimes people accept that, you know? So I'm not asking anyone to raise their hands if you're in that situation, but Greg, I would like to play this short video to just explain why leading by example is so important and what can happen if we don't hold ourselves and people accountable. So shall I give it a go?
Culture is like a glass of water that everyone who interacts with your organization will be drinking from. Welcome to Leading Transformational Change, episode 4. So in this episode, I want to answer a question that I received from an HR manager at a business. She was asking, so how can I help leaders and coworkers in my organization understand the impact they have on the culture? And to do that, I want to use the picture of a glass of water. Culture is like a glass of water that everyone who interacts with your organization will be drinking from. Whether it's your customers, whether it's your suppliers, whether it's your community, and of course all your employees. And whether this water is clean and pure will impact them. And everyone in your organization contributes to this water. Everyone pours something into it. Maybe for an employee, the impact is of a certain level. And then for somebody in leadership, and especially somebody in a senior leadership position, the impact might be much, much greater. But I think it's also important to know that it doesn't need to take that much of a color additive to impact the consistency of water. And the same is true in an organization. When we allow certain behavior, when we give room and tolerate certain things that are toxic, our culture can turn toxic as well. And that's why you as a leader or anyone as an employee always have to think about that what you do and who you are will shape the culture of that organization over time. So I want to leave you with this thought and with this challenge. Think as a leader about what you do in your leadership that impacts the culture in a healthy way and that impacts it in a destructive way. And impacting it in a destructive way might be something you do, but it might also be something that you tolerate. Something that you allow to go on, or maybe it's an individual that you give space to within your organization because they perform well, they have the great sales numbers or whatever it is, but they're actually not contributing with health to the culture of the organization.
So, quite powerfully simple there, okay, about how we lead by example, but also you being accountable as a leader to foster an environment where people can thrive, but understanding the impact of if you don't address, behaviours that are not in line with what you want, what can happen. And that's not to frighten you. I think it's just about dealing with the reality. So where do I want to leave you with before I stop talking and I have some time for questions? Well, one is, I've had a little bit of time with you today, all right? I always like to leave you with a little bit more if you want to dig into it. That question, what are you great at, comes from this fantastic book by Renee Carriel called Spike. And it's a book I recommend because it has practical examples that can support you about looking at your positive strengths, case studies of people who've done that, and how that helps you in both progress in your career in terms of where you are now. Career progression doesn't always mean moving on. It can be, being really good at the role you have now, but also thinking about your leadership journey as well. And I want to leave you with a takeaway action. I gave you a little bit of homework, but I'd also like to ask you here, if anything I said today prompted you, probed you, gave you some food for thought, may have given you a few insights that you've taken away, I'd like you to just take a moment to write down one thing you are either going to start doing, stop doing, or continue doing as a result of our conversation today. Just one thing that you're going to either start doing, stop doing, or continue doing as a result of our conversation today. I will put up my contact details in a moment. I would love to hear from you. If you want to share your takeaway action with me, we are going to have time for questions. And if there's anything that I've said here, you thought, you know what, Monique? Yeah, you kind of provoked some thought, but actually, maybe I didn't agree with everything that you said. Please do get in touch. I always welcome that. I think we learn by challenge and growing together. So let me just remind you, what did we talk about today? Knowing what you're great at, building trust and confidence, and leading by example. And as I said, really happy to take questions. Do connect with me on socials if you are on there. Love to connect with you. I talk about all things Brave Leadership all the time, on LinkedIn especially. We also have a TikTok, if anyone likes TikTok. We are on there as well. And I'd be more than happy to receive your emails too. But I'll stop talking there, and I'm happy to take any questions.
So much, Monique. Sorry, I've got to get on the stage a little bit close, but we are live streaming this to our children's public health services. So if I don't, I've been told if I don't talk into the mic, they can't hear me, which is a bit bizarre when you're trying to watch it on screen. Can I check for any questions for Monique? I was going to say, I don't believe that for one minute.
Hi, Monique. Thank you very much for that really inspirational talk. I just wondered what you would offer to the NHS is quite varied in terms of different generations working together. And I just wondered what advice you would offer to leaders who find that they are perhaps leading people who are younger than them or, as you mentioned, significantly different generation to themselves.
Yeah, it's a good question because it's the reality, isn't it, now? I think this, what I was saying before about asking that question, how may I support you? Is there anything else you need? What do you think? Because I think sometimes we try to work it out and we don't actually go and ask, what is it that people need? Is it as different as what we might think it is or we perceive it is? I think it's important just to ask and understand that. And to also think about, is there a common denominator? Of course, there's an obvious one. We're here to provide safe, high-quality care. But is there a common denominator that does bring and connect teams together? Because, again, sometimes it's there, but we're looking for something magic. We miss the things that are most simple.
Into silence, Monique. Last chance before we break for coffee. Okay, well, I just want to, final words from me, just a massive thank you.
You're welcome.
I think we're on a journey in terms of our One Team Conference. You've mentioned we come together every year. This is the second time we've done it. I think it's really powerful to hear some of the messages that we've heard today, and I think your session has brought some of that together in a really coherent way. So thank you very much for that. Just final thanks for Monique. For those of you that might have been concerned about putting your hand up and speaking out loud, Monique will be here over coffee, so if you do want to catch her for anything that you might have wanted to ask but didn't feel comfortable to, then catch her at coffee time. Now coffee back in the room where we had lunch. Thank you. Hi everyone. If I can ask everyone to start taking their seats, that would be great. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, welcome back. We are on the last section of the day after some really inspiring sessions, and again a massive thank you to Monique. There's been lots of chatter over the break and I'm sure people will be in touch with her. Thank you, Monique, and safe journey back. Okay, I would like to introduce our next speakers, who I know are a little bit nervous, but I don't want them to be, because this is honestly the impact that they have had. Well, I'll let you hear about it. But Jolly, Thompson and Prestige, if you'd like to come up to the stage. Are our internationally educated nurse leads. Have a seat on there, you're okay, sit down. So I'm handing over to Jolly first. They will introduce themselves, but just a massive thank you from me for doing this today, because it's really important that we get to hear about the lived experience of all of our workforce that comes through our organisation, and for them to get up here and speak about their experiences today is really important to us, so thank you for that. Go on, Jolly. No.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jolly Isho. I'm a practice educator for internationally educated nurses, or OSCE nurses. What is OSCE? Most of you heard about OSCE or OSCE nurses. But what is OSCE? OSCE is an objective, structured clinical examination to obtain NMC registration. The internationally nurses must undertake the NMC test of competence. It consists of two parts. The first part is the computer-based test. It's a theory test. The nurses should pass the CBT test prior to arrival in the UK. And the second part is the OSCE. They need to attend in the UK and they need to pass to gain their NMC PIN to work as a registered nurse in the UK. The candidate is tested on the ability to apply their clinical knowledge and communication skills. This is to standard expected by NMC, the point of registration in the UK. And my job is to both prepare the OSCE nurses to pass the exam, OSCE exam, and gain the PIN number, and also support the pastoral care, and thus before, during, and after the process. And what is the OSCE process? It's a long process actually. They need to, prior to their arrival in the UK or trying to register with NMC, they have to undergo an English test. They need to pass that English test prior to register in the UK. After that, they have to do the CBT. Then they need to come for the interview or the online interview. Once they're successful, all the documents and all the verification done, once they are ready, or their HR system say, oh, we got 10 people for this cohort, then we do the online meet and greet. So my journey start with the OSCE nurses. It's not once they're here in the UK, way before. Because once they interview, I will arrange an online meet and greet with the HR, and we will explain everything about OSCE. What is OSCE? How many stations are there? What are we expecting, or the NMC expecting from you? And also, little bit about Harrogate, and also about our hospital, what are the wards, how the system works, and things like that. And also, we send soft copies of the NMC guided marking criteria, and they have to, sorry, they have to go with that. And we send them all the soft copies. Once they are here, once they arrived in the UK, once they are in the accommodation, I will go and see them. Straight away, go and see them. That makes them, the nervousness goes down. And also, they feel somebody is there to familiar face, and they can contact. I will share my contact number so they can contact me anytime. It's day or night, because the ones, they're coming from another country, and nobody is here, no family member. They leave everyone out there, and they're coming in. It is really a nervous-struck thing. And so I share my number so they can contact me anytime. And also our HR, they will give them their number as well to contact them. And once then, after they're settled, couple of days, then we taken them to the orientation done to the wards, managers, and taken them to the town, to where is the town, what all things they can get in, and also taken them to the bank, and taking an account, and BRP. That's the biometric permit they needed to do anything else after once they arrive in this country. After that, we are arranging occupational health, usual normal things, occupational health and uniforms. And after that first week over, that's the beginning of the hardship, because the OSCE preparation is going to happen. The OSCE preparation is 6 to 7 weeks. At the end of the 7 week, they need to go for the exam. And once they finish their exam, waiting for if it pass, otherwise they can go another attempt. Initially it was 3 attempts, but then, once they finish the exam and they're waiting for the NMC pin, they work as a band 3, as healthcare support workers. Once they receive their pin, they work as a registered nurse or band 5 nurses in whichever the area is allocated for them. These are the process. You can see this is our first cohort, came on 2017, and the right-hand side, you can see Thompson in that picture. He is here as well, and he is going to tell his life story about OSCE. And they are the guinea pigs for actually OSCE, because we don't know what was OSCE, and because it was a very hardship when they came in. I don't know much about OSCE. I need to learn. I was getting through. And also we faced lots of hurdles, but we managed to pass that hurdles at the beginning. And we can see how many, and that's Emily Reid in there. HR contribute a very high support for them to success this project as well. When you're looking at the statistics, you can see when we're starting from 2017, and you can looking at it 2023, we had a huge jump up from 20 candidates each cohort. That was really a hard time, because doubled up the intake, and we need to find lots of stuff, and I need to be ready with everything. So that was, and plus the recruitment and HR, they have to work hard as well. It's not only, it was also a teamwork to afford that. And you can see 194 nurses have been recruited and trained through this OSCE program. From that, 30 nurses were already based in the UK. That means the nurses already here worked as a band 3 or 2, and they were waiting to progress, but they couldn't. And we managed to move them, and they passed the OSCE, and also 30 of them also become a registered nurse and working in our trust. And our last cohort will be 2025. That's also our current HDFT colleagues. That will be our last cohort. Officially, our OSCE is finished, but that will be the extra cohort who were already in our trust, working as a band 2 or band 3. And when we're looking at it, OSCE nurses have joined all adult inpatient ward and ITU, endoscopy, ED, theaters, DSU, outpatient, and pediatric. And moreover, anything, we have a very good retention rate, and we got 90% internationally recruited nurses are still working with us. That is something we really appreciated. And also, you can see more than 17 countries we had international nurses from. It's a different flag. Don't ask me which is which, because I have no clue. This is all from Google. So these are the 17 countries we recruited. So you can see the diversity and ethnicity in here as well, as like we know how many countries working in our HDFT. These are some parts of countries who joined to IEN program. We're going to look at the advantage of international recruitment at HDFT. Sorry. So these are some of the important advantage: diversity and cultural competence, knowledge exchange, specialized skill and experience, global perspectives, cost effectiveness, addressing staff shortage. So I'm just going to focus on staff shortage. Whenever we all sit here, we know when you work a short staffage time, it's really hard working in that environment. So we got 194 nurses internationally recruited and working in our trust. And if it's well-staffed, what will happen? Well-staffed area, we always likes to work in that area because it was everything we can done, and we will have that peace of mind. And also promote patient safety and continuity of care and reduced, and also colleague well-being from the personal. My personal experience, last 2 weeks prior, I went to one of the medical elderly ward. When I went in there, two of the charge nurse and one of the charge nurse and one of the nurse in charge is an internationally educated nurse, and also 4 band 5. All in that ward is the internationally recruited nurse. And you can see the impact of the OSCE nurses and how it will support our trust. And also, it will help our patient well-being. With well-staffed ward, we look after the patient well as well. At the end, this is what we want. We want the safe patient care. But when we say all that good things, we had lots of challenges we faced. And we initially, when we started 2017, we had 8 weeks, 8 to 12 weeks, the candidates can go for the exam. So we're preparing like that. So they're going 3 days coming to the classroom-based training, and 2 days they're going to go for the clinicals. Then after the COVID, we were short-staffed. We changed all that things. It's like a quality improvement. I was thinking, how can I help or how can I support this? So we changed to the boot camp. Boot camp means it's 6 to 7 weeks. It's like an intense training of the OSCE training. And at the end of the 7th week, they have to go for the exam. But it's not only 3 days, it's Monday to Friday, 5 days classroom-based training, then they're going for the exam. That support, that help our trust to have earlier to get a registered nurse, and also the nurses coming from different countries, you can see the financially they will struggle because the housing, getting things, is not easier for them to getting advance to give the another house or accommodation and things like that. It was harder for them as well. So it's supporting both ways. So we moved to the boot camp. That was a 7-week boot camp. So that improvement was gone very well as well. We got a good pass rate as well. And also, even because we take Monday to Friday the classroom braces training, I don't work on Fridays. So we need to recruit more PE to cover that things. And also when I'm going for annual leave, there was nobody. So it was like we need to recruit more PEs as well. Also NMC increased from 6 station to 10 station exam. So the syllabus is gone high, and we need to prepare the OSCE nurses for more as well. So there was lots of challenges we need to face to become, they need to get their NMC PIN number. And because when I said earlier on, the statistics when you see in 2023, our intake is gone up to 10 to 20. It was a big intake that time. So we don't have enough place to teach Monday to Friday in our trust because it's 20 everyday teaching. So we need to move to the Harrogate College. That was another thing, because once you're moving somewhere and you need to get all the equipments ready therefore to teach. And sometimes I feel after a certain 5 o'clock and things, nobody there. It's like an isolated things. But this is all different things we need to face to move on this project. And also, already I mentioned about the internationally educated nurses who were here long a time. So educating them and becoming band 5 nurses, the gap between their practice as a registered nurses, it is huge. Long gap. So educating back, it is hard at time as well. So there was a lot of challenges we faced, and you can see the bigger group, 20 in there. So that are the biggest group we had. And the pastoral support, I said we do online meet and greet, then we move to onboarding event. What is onboarding event? To support the international nurses to meet their managers and their senior colleagues, and also who was previously joined to the OSCE program. They will all come together. Then it's absolutely not about anything about OSCE. So they can talk about whatever they want, like how do you find a house, or where did you staying, how are you going to find a house, lots of other stuff they could ask, because that is a social event to talk each other. And sometimes that will help, some people will ask, oh, my daughter is coming and she is 10 or 12, where the school, how is the schooling, how we can find a schooling, how is the admissions. So it was really helpful for next cohort and the previous cohort come and support them as well. And also they can meet the managers and the senior nurses from the wards. So when they go into the ward, they not feel like anxious because they've seen the managers before and few familiar face that was helping them as well. And also we started transition week and supernumerary booklet, and we also have lots of other PEs supporting this process as well. And out of our pastoral support is not only while they are in OSCE training, is any time we will go and support them as well. And the success of this project is the 100% pass rate. And the other main important thing, thank you. And nobody has gone home because it means after 3 attempts, if they not pass the exam, they have to go back. But nobody gone home. That's the very important thing. As also, we had awarded for National Pastoral Support Award we received. And in that 94 nurses, we had a 24 out of 194 out now band 6 role in our HDFT. That's brilliant things. And quite a few feedbacks there. And also, I'm going to take this opportunity to thank you all the trust with supporting this project. And especially, thank you Leslie Danby when we started. It was a really hard time. Her support was huge. And Emily Reed. And also, the other practice educator, Bolani Daniels, and Sonia Varghese, and Priyanka Tangamvalsalan. And these are other practice educator, obviously, all other ward managers, and the practice educator team, once they're going out to the ward, they are the big supporter for them. So otherwise, this project won't go successful. And while I was here, I was receiving all the feedback, Monday, the last cohort gone for the exam, the result was coming through. Oh my God, I was so nervous. I was like looking my phone, each vibration, I was thinking, is it anybody pass or what is happening? But 8 of the nurses went for the exam, the result out 1 hour before, and 7 of them passed first pass. So it is a very good achievement. And this project was successful with lots of support, and it's not only one-man show, it was a teamwork from everyone. Thank you so much. I'm handing over to Thompson now.
Oh, thank you, Jolie, for the inspiring speech. So my name is Thompson Joseph. I currently work as a Band 6 nurse in one of the acute elderly wards. I came to this country in 2017, around October time, and we were the first batch. You might have seen the picture. We were the guinea pigs of OSCE. We had some good time. It was really hard, I must say, because at that point of time, we were not quite sure what was happening in the real OSCE exam. Jolie had put in a lot of hard work. So at some point, we were thinking we were doing the right training. Sometimes we were thinking, oh, we're not doing the right thing. We're like beating around the bushes. But anyway, thanks to all the hard work that Jolie put in and the practice education team, I was able to pass the exam on my first attempt, and I'm really proud of it. Currently, my role is a Band 6, so I support the ward. I support the junior staff. I'm the one looking after the student nurses in the ward, so I spend a lot of time with the student nurses as well. And I'm proud to say I've recently received a Making a Difference award, and it was recommended by one of the students that seeing my hard work and stuff. So that was really a boost to my career as well. And a lot of things have happened with me since I've joined the HDFT personally and in the workplace. You might have seen a lot of changes have happened, like a lot of things have gone electronically. Brenda was saying about the SNCT and the workforce, the staffing has improved, so a lot of changes. And I was able to get along with the changes really easily because I had a very good start. I had a very good support from the trust, from the practice education team, and Jolie personally, she was like a mother to me when I came. I was all by myself. It was really challenging because I was all by myself, no friends, no family. Imagine coming to a completely different country with no friends, no family members, nobody to talk to. So Jolie was inviting all of us, like not just me, all of us to her house, giving us some good food. So that was all good days, although it was hard for me. But then personally as well, a lot of things have happened. I got married. My wife is also a nurse. She's also a band 6. She works with the practice education team. We've got a 4-year-old now. So here I am. So I'm really, really proud to say I'm one of the many happy international nurses in the trust. Thank you.
Good afternoon to all. First of all, thank you for providing me this opportunity. My name is Pratish Parathanal Tangachan. I am an internationally trained OSCE nurse. I had scribbled a lot of things to speak over here, but I would say Jolie has spoken almost everything that I had to say. But then I do not want to leave that opportunity, but I would continue with what I had written. I began my career in nursing in the year 2009. It was then that I joined in a hospital as a staff nurse. In 2016, I did my master's in nursing and then joined in a medical college hospital named Chirayu Medical College and Hospital. I worked there in medical wards, and I was also a part-time lecturer at the College of Nursing till 2022. From there, I decided to come to UK. A few of my friends and my family persuaded me to take that decision. I prepared for English language test, and then with all the paperwork being done, I came to UK on 25th May 2023. That's quite nearer. You can see that me as a newbie over here. Long before my entry into UK, the team from HR, especially Jolie and the HR group, were in touch with me. Regularly, they were in touch with me through emails and through Teams. And then we were also given a welcome pack, which gave us all the necessary information about the hospital and the facilities over here. So we were quite aware of what we were going to see once we were here. I still remember the day that I arrived in Manchester Airport. I had a lot of stress and strain because I had to leave my family back home and I had to leave here independent, which was not quite usual with me. On arrival, there was a taxi waiting out in the airport, and they had taken us over here, and there was Emily Reed, the international recruitment lead, who was waiting for us with all the arrangements, necessary arrangements, like showing us around the hospital and the place where we were living, and all the facilities that was needed, like the food, accommodation, everything was arranged well ahead, so which was quite awesome, I would say. And she literally came in person to the bank and to post office, as what Jolie had said. I had to go literally 3 times or 4 times for collecting my BRP. All the time, somebody was sent with us, like for transportation. And transportation was arranged quite early itself. We were 10 in our OSCE batch, and everyone had one or other stress regarding separation from families or the stress of the upcoming exams. There were many challenges that we had to address for OSCE exam, such as practicing professional values, evidence-based practice, and procedures following NMC guidelines. Jolie was the lead for OSCE preparation classes. She used to research every day about the new advancements that used to come in the exams. I would say that even after the exam of everyone, she used to come in person to collect the details of what questions were asked, so that she could practice those questions to the next batches. Like what he said, he was a guinea pig for her. But when we came, we were not the guinea pigs. She was quite experienced in the profession, what she was doing. Everything was very well planned. And even for exams, one of the assessors, one of the educators were accompanying us. Like the taxi was pre-booked, exam was pre-booked, we did not have to be worried about anything. So everything was well planned. And I was just talking to both Linda and Jolie today. The plans were well ahead, that for the next year, what has to be done, that is planned today. So, which is quite well advanced, so I appreciate that. Soon after we were cleared of OSCE, we were given 2 weeks of transition week to attain competencies in procedures before being introduced into wards. And that gave us a lot of confidence before going into wards. And my first manager was Martine, who is over there. She was quite supportive to all the international nurses. I would say the team as a whole was very supportive. And we were given all privileges to learn the new procedures to be as an international nurse in UK. Although we were nurses back home, we did not have all the competencies that we literally should have to practice in UK. So those were all assisted by them. And then, a few months back, I saw an advertisement that there was a Band 6 vacancy on secondment in one of the elderly wards, and I had applied for that, and with God's grace and with all the preparations that I had, luckily I got through that, and I am on that. And I would say that even there, I'm given immense opportunities, and the support that I am being provided by HDFT team is huge. And the ward manager, matron, and the Band 6s over there, they were literally there with me all days to support. Now I work independently, but I can say that if I need anything, there are people who would stand with me. HDFT team is there to support me, which is a great help and resort when you think as a nurse in UK. So that's a great support. I thank you all for the support that you have been providing me since the time that I have been here until what I am today. Thank you all. Thanks.
Wow, that is absolutely amazing. I feel quite emotional talking here now, thinking about the huge impact that Jolie and the team have had on our internationally educated nurses. And just, I know, going back to what Steve said earlier on today, we shouldn't compare, but just that recollection of how it feels as when you're firstly registered and you've got to go out into those wards or in that community or wherever it might be that you're practicing, that's hard enough. But to have to have gone through the OSCE process and then do that is an additional ask. And I think just massive well done to the teams that have done that, and the integration that they've made into our teams. We've got a massive diverse workforce now, which I'm really proud of as an organisation, and we need to think about, with the leadership agenda, how we ensure we've got that talent management right through the organisation so we can continue to progress those careers for all of those people who've stayed with us, because actually HDFT is a great place to work. So thank you. Is there any questions before? I can see Jolly's trying to run down the conference room to get out of the way. Is there any questions anywhere? Tammy? I'll let you back up.
Sorry, you can't escape yet, Jolly. So I've got a comment and a question. My comment is for Jolly, just to say a huge thank you from myself and from my teams for all your hard work and dedication, because the success wouldn't come without you. So thank you. And my question is for Pratish and Thompson. You're not escaping either. I'd just like to ask you, other than the weather, what is the biggest hurdles that you've had to overcome? come into HDFT?
You want to talk? I think the recognition that I get is one of the main things that I appreciate here. I've recently done an RCN leadership course, and I've completed it, and we've had all these certificates and everything, and then one day Charlie, the head of nursing, came to us, and to me actually, and gave me a little card saying, well done on completing the course. It's a very little thing, but it's really made a big, massive impact on me personally. Thank you for doing that. So the recognition, it's huge.
I would say in terms of me, what I understand, the love and support that the team HDFT is giving to us is awesome. And wherever I have worked, everybody has been quite supportive. And they have been always there with me throughout the time. Even I was in struggle, or I was finding it difficult to learn things. So everywhere they were there to support me and to guide me. So which is actually something that always would keep me with HDFT. Thank you.
Thank you, Tommy. Any other questions?
Thank you. I've got a bit of a shaky voice now. But no, I just wanted to say thank you. And I think we've all seen amazing, inspirational speeches today, but I'm probably not the only one that thinks this kind of tops it. And you're our own, so thank you. And I guess you talked about there's 24 people in Band 6 positions, and going back to what Emma says, what do we need to do so that we have more people in Band 6 positions, but actually in Band 6, 7, 8, 9 positions in our organisation? Because you have stayed and you're committed and you're part of our brilliant workforce. So I guess that's maybe a question to ourselves and to you around what we need to do to continue to develop you here.
Thank you, Charlie. It's a big question, actually. Yeah, when you're looking at it, our HDFT, maybe we need to think about it, actually, as a board or someone, how we can move forward, especially in the national nurses or any outside from than here. So we need to look at it that, yes, obviously, yes, that's the big, huge thing we need to move forward as it is, yeah. Thank you for the question.
I've just got a bit of a comment, really, and I just wanted to say thank you. I mean, really humbling discussion and talk about your journey. I mean, I think I've got a hard time coming from Skipton every day, but, you know, you've got the amount of work that you've put in, Jolly, and the amount of change that you guys have had to go through to come and support us. And I think what I wanted to say as well is the impact that you've made here has been absolutely phenomenal, so thank you. And just moving on from Charlie, I've got a wobbly voice now as well, but just moving on from what Charlie was saying is how do we challenge ourselves and how do we progress that conversation about how we can get you in more senior leadership roles? So, but thank you for everything you've done, and thank you for your leadership, Jolly.
Thank you.
Okay, no pressure, Liz and the team, to follow on. So I am going to hand over to Liz and others who I'm sure will introduce themselves. So we obviously wanted to have a focused conversation. We've had lots of more generic discussions today about that could affect all professions, but this particular session is all things AHP, so I'm looking forward to it because Liz didn't tell me what was actually in there. So
That's all right.
over to you.
Hi everyone, I don't know how we follow that really. Anyway, so for those of you who don't know me, my name is Liz Audsley. I'm the Strategic AHP Lead for the Trust. And What I'm going to do is just do a little bit of a whistle-stop tour around our AHP services that we have at HDFT, talk a little bit about who we are, a little bit about our strategy, link that to our clinical services strategy, and then we're going to showcase, as Steve had said, celebrate all of the wins. We're going to celebrate some of our wins from our services and our service leads that are here, and they'll talk to you a little bit about some of the things that they've been doing. So, if I can work the technology, what do? Press that one. Okay, little question for you. You might have seen the answer. It kept flashing up. And I was desperately trying to get Greg to change the slides back. How many AHP professions are there in the UK? And if you're in AHP, don't answer. 15 roles. Funny that. So there are actually 14 different AHP professions. Now, the two different roles that make up the 15 are actually radiography. So there are two types of radiography. There's diagnostic and therapeutic, which are actually really quite different professions, but that's what makes up the 15. So we're all registered with the HCPC, so that's our regulator. But we all have slightly different standards within the HCPC family. So when you go onto the HCPC website, the standards for all of us. But we also all have our own professional bodies or our royal colleges. So we all have very, very different regulators, perhaps to nursing and midwifery. So that comes with a whole host of other problems and differences to navigate. So that's the first thing. So thinking that we have 14, how many do you think we have at HDFT? Well, we have 9. Anybody name 9? Dietitians, yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yay! But that's cheating because you are one. So we've got to 4. Any more? OT, yes. ODPs, yes. Don't forget the ODPs. Any others? We've said physio. Any others? Speech and language, yeah. Radiography, yes. And any others? Okay, let me show you then. Let them fly in after Ed did all my slides for me. So these are the professions that we have. The one you missed was paramedics. So we do now employ paramedics at HDFT. We have some who are employed but are not actually working as paramedics, but we also have some that work within the what we call the UCR team, which is the Urgent Crisis Response team that works out in community. So those are the 9 different professions. Now, I put orthotists at the bottom. Orthotists, we do have them at HDFT, but they're not employed by us. They're employed by a contractor called Take Care. That is one of the smallest of the AHP professions, and most organisations don't employ their own. They're employed by larger companies, and they deliver services across multiple organisations. So at HDFT, well, we're the 3rd largest staff group within the NHS and also within HDFT. We have over 400 registrants, and then we have at least 60 support workers, but I think the last time I counted we had nearly 90. We work in professional teams across both acute and community settings, and that's the really key thing about the work that we do. It's really multi-professional. And somebody described us the other day to me as we're enablers of other services. So we are. When you think of our directorate structure, which is quite top-down in terms of how services are divided up, we work across those directorates and we're delivering care across the board. So you might find AHPs in the hospital, in outpatients, in community clinics, GP practices, care homes, patients' own homes, schools, and also even in the hospice. So we're delivering care in lots of different places. This is our leadership team. So we have me there as the strategic AHP lead. I've been in this role since 2022. And then I have Emma, who's sitting along here, and I have Matt. You want to wave, Matt? Who are the PSCC Directorate leads. And then we have Sally. Where's Sally? Over there at the back, who is our LTUCC Directorate lead. And then we have professional leads for every profession except paramedics, and that's not because we don't want one, but because we just haven't quite got round to organising it yet, but we will be. We have identified some funding to support that. And then we have 2 specialist roles. So we have Lorna, who is our practice learning facilitator, so she works within the Mark Flowers' team and supports our student learners. And then we have Catherine, who is just here. So Catherine is our AHP research practitioner, and she's a dietitian by background. So that is our current leadership structure. So just wanted to talk to you a little bit about some of the ways that we work, and this is our national strategy. So this is what we call AHPs Deliver. This is the second strategy that AHPs have had. And having said we are 14 different professions, we have one strategy that has come from our AHP central office, which is known as the CAPO for some bizarre reason, but it is. So the CAPO have produced this document, which is our strategy. And we've got people in the middle, because we're all very people-centric. We all focus on putting patients first and people. So our big thing is around holistic, patient-centred care. And then we've got our 5 areas of focus in the middle, our 4 enablers and areas on the outside, and then our 2 golden threads of co-production and anti-racism. So you can see leadership is really important, and we can all be leaders at any level. And that can lead us to innovate, and it can also lead us to support the other strategies that we're working towards, whether that be national or whether that be the HDFT clinical services strategy. So I just wanted to share this with you a little bit, because AHP services are not mentioned per se in this necessarily, but what we do is we underpin and enable every aspect of this. So and this is what some of the team are going to showcase today, how we actually managed to do that. And the first one that I wanted to talk about is something that's close to my heart. So some of you will know that I am still a dietitian by background, but I spent over 26 years working as a paediatric specialist dietitian. So paediatrics is my thing. That's what I do. And so this aspect of the clinical services strategy and the hopes for healthcare is really important to me. And what you may not know is that we have a whole team dedicated to working with children and young people, and it's a real multidisciplinary team. So I wanted to share that with you today, because it starts with the community nursing, specialist community nursing team. And this is the team that I've worked with for the last 26 years, not here, but across the piece in various different locations. And when I first came here, I spent a lot of time with this team. And so they've shown there how they are meeting the hopes for healthcare in the work that they're doing. But this is not just a nursing team. Alongside them, we've got OT, we've got physio, we've got dietitians, and we also have speech and language therapy. So those are the specialist roles that all work really close together to support our children and young people, often with very life-limiting long-term conditions. So that's a really big piece of work that I just wanted to showcase, and something that is really important to me, but really shows how AHPs work in a multidisciplinary way. So I'm going to hand over to Karen, who is our professional lead for speech and language therapy, and she's going to talk you through some of the slides from children and young people.
Thank you. So I'm not a paediatric speech and language therapist by background, so Wendy Brotherton's done these slides for us kindly. And she, pressing it by accident. She's connected her talk basically around the 7 hopes for healthcare. So we've got aim 1, which is to involve the child or young person in their care. And this speech and language therapy in paediatrics, right, is person-centred reports with neuro-affirming language. Aim 2 is to encourage confident two-way communication. Speech therapists observe, assess and use strategies to maximise the potential to communicate. So I've got a slide on another, one of the other slides in a little while, and we'll show you lots of different ways we can do that. Number 3 is to start early with health information. So speech therapy are involved in the SCABoo ward rounds, giving information about dysphagia and communication. I'll talk a little bit more about dysphagia in a while, because I've got some adult slides after this as well. They've also got waiting well links on the speech therapy websites for ages and stages, checklists and resources. They use a complex under 5 multi-team assessment for joined up working, and have also set up a virtual preschool speech and language therapy parent group, which sounds amazing. So aim 4 is moving to adult healthcare services. So speech and language therapy produced a transition pathway. So this is mainly for adult learning disabilities and children's learning disabilities. And we had a few challenges, to be honest, which involved my service as well. Just issues with parents not being aware that they were going to basically have to get re-referred into adult services, and they weren't aware that the paediatric input was going to change. So what happens now, Wendy and one of my adult learning disabilities speech therapists, and also Beth in the children's services, have met up regularly and worked out a plan for when the child gets to year 12, they start to have conversations about what the plan is next. And then when they get to year 13, they meet up, they have really clear discussions about whether there's going to be an end of treatment or whether the episode of care has ended and then they have to get referred on to other services, or if they're going to, if they've got ongoing complex needs, or they've still got speech and language therapy need, or if they've got swallowing problems, they will then go on to referral into the adult services. But there's lots of joint working together, and lots, just really open communication, really, so that everybody knows exactly where they are, and it's seamless transfer into adult services, because they're very, very different. Aim 5 is to make children and young people feel welcome. So speech therapists offer flexibility over location of appointments and make reasonable adjustments to the profile. So I'll show you the easy read and symbols in a second, and they also make sure that the sensory environment is optimal as well. Aim 6 is healthcare rights. So speech therapy have a communication bill of rights. We've got a slide on that as well, I think, haven't we?
We have.
Yep.
Yep.
And speech therapy have worked with learning disabilities nursing to deliver communication training to Woodlands Ward as well in 2024. And the last aim is having a voice. Speech therapy were part of the MDT who created an innovative, adapted friends and family test for children and young people who do not use speech as their main form of communication. So, and they were winners of an NHS England Send Award, which I think is absolutely fantastic. So I think that probably needs a bit of an applause. This is a demonstration of the easy to read and accessible communication bill of rights. So it's just to make sure that that child or young person has a voice. And we can really support this by the use of symbols and just breaking down language into easy read information, just short, really small chunks if we can. And Wendy's just put together some different things. So I think there's a little light on here. Yes. So we can use signing to support communication. We can use talking mats. We use this a lot in adults as well, especially with adult learning disabilities. This can give a structure of a sentence almost, or you can put things in categories. So for things like mental capacity, this is really absolutely great. I've got one member of the team at the moment is actually supporting the police force because to support the communication for an investigation, which is just incredible. We can support lots of different things. And this is easy to read rules for a child with symbol support and just making sure it's really clear and easy to read. This is a symbol board so that they can just point to the symbols that they want, and it just helps them to communicate. And you can also use objects of reference, which are things like using a cup for a drink or a plate for food, or you can even have like a scarf of somebody special to them to indicate that person. So I think that is, so that's the paediatric part of speech and language therapy. So I think it's over to Liz.
So as part of the same team, we've got physiotherapists and occupational therapists. So it's really just to highlight, I hope everybody can get these slides later. It just shows some of the work that they're doing, how they're actually trying to prevent admission. So working with the Respire service, trying to keep children with respiratory conditions at home and in school to support their development and learning. And working together with the OT service as well, particularly with some of these children with the neuromuscular problems or those that need multiple different types of assessments. And they will go into schools, but they'll also go into mainstream school and follow the child through. And work alongside with dietetics, because a lot of these children will also have a feeding problem as well, so they'll be seeing speech and language therapy as well as dietetics. I'm back
over to me.
Back over to Karen to
my
talk
voice.
about the adults.
So adult speech and language therapy. So I also manage the adult speech and language therapy service. So we've got leaders in all areas that we cover as adults. So the clue is in our title, speech and language, or maybe not, because actually a massive part of our role is to do swallowing, which often people aren't aware of. Obviously, if you're working in a hospital, you probably are. But that's when somebody's got eating, drinking or swallowing difficulties. So so we get involved with communication and swallowing on stroke, on the elderly wards, including frailty, in the acute services. We've got instrumental assessments, which I'll discuss in a minute, to assess swallowing. We work in community neurology, intensive care, so we're involved in the kind of later stages of weaning from tracheostomy, using speaking valves and things like that. We've got adult learning disabilities services, and we also get heavily involved in AAC, which is what I was talking about with like the talking mats and the communication symbols. You can also use iPads and other communication aids. So how do these leaders and the rest of the speech therapy team support and deliver the Trust Clinical Services strategy? So I think I just pulled out 2 areas that I think demonstrate this well. I think what we've done is dramatically improve our instrumental services. So the first one that we have is videophoscopy, so I'll explain it in a second. But we have weekly clinics at Harrogate Hospital for 3 patients, 1 inpatient and 2 outpatients. And then we've also got a monthly clinic at the Friar Ridge Hospital for 2 patients, which include the Hammond Rich community patients and also from the Rutson ward. So here's a clip. It's really bad. It's very difficult to get anything onto the Trust systems these days without being able to use encrypted memory sticks or anything. So it's a little bit of a shoddy recording, but hopefully it can explain it. So let me just give you your bearings. So this is a videophoscopy, which is basically a moving X-ray of the swallow. And we've got the jaw here. We've got the patient's tongue here. I'll show you on both of them. We've got the epiglottis, which is a little flap that covers over your airway when you swallow. Sorry if everybody knows this, but I'm just saying it in lay terms. We've got your spine here. And we've got your esophagus down here. And your airway is this bit here. So the aim is for somebody to swallow and for it to go all the way from the mouth down into the esophagus and into the stomach without going into the airway. And so I think this is just a really good comparison of both of them. Apparently I can, here we go. I think I can get it to play. So I'll play it a couple of times because it's very quick. But can you tell which one is the effective swallow? Yeah. So we've got an effective swallow and a disordered swallow. So I don't know whether you can see it, but on the right it does actually aspirate, which is when material goes down into the airway. So if you just watch it again. So just there, and then he actually starts coughing or she starts coughing. But just if you're looking at this person eating food and how quickly it is compared to the other one, it's quite a very drastic difference, isn't it? So that's the videophoscopy. So what have we done in videophoscopy? We've introduced MBS IMP, which is modified barium swallow, which is the American term for videophoscopy, impairment profile training for old and new clinicians across the team. And this is to ensure evidence-based practice. And we've worked really closely with radiology and linking in either Leeds teaching hospitals with HDFT to support the changes to X-ray settings and protocols, because we've had to do quite a lot of things to change the protocol. So this is connected with, as part of the strategy, this is kind of focusing on the priorities of clinical workforce, highest quality, safest care, healthcare innovation and best place to work, and also clinical partnerships and networks. And the results of us doing this and making the changes in videophoscopy is we've got standardisation across clinicians and also both of our hospitals. We've got improved, more accurate and reliable reporting. We've got greater inter and intra-reliability. We're just constantly improving the clinical skills. We've got an ongoing training programme to ensure succession planning, increased speed of interpretation and reporting, because you do less sort of frames of the videophoscopy, less trials, and you just really, really focus on the first one and then score it, and actually that leads to you doing everything much quicker, so that releases the workforce. And it also means reduced duration of procedure and therefore dosage of radiation, so our times have come down significantly. and we're aiming for under 3 minutes, which we often used to go over that, which is great. And again, this connects to the trust strategy for highest quality, safest care, clinical workforce, and best place to work, because we're training up the team. Next, we've got fibre optic endoscopic evaluation of swallowing, which just rolls off the tongue, short and 2 fees. So we've got 2 inpatients per week that we're doing at the moment, and we are looking at an outpatient clinic, but we just need the medical support, so we don't know. We're just looking into that at the moment as a hope, because I think that would be really beneficial for the service. And this is fees. So these are my colleagues here, some of which you may recognise. So this is when they were learning how to scope. And basically what we do is we use a nose endoscope like ear, nose and throat surgeons, and we put it up the nose, and then we look down at the pharynx and the larynx, and then we assess people to swallow in that way. So it's a very, very different view from what you see on a videophoscopy, and both of them are good in their own rights, and sometimes you need both of them to complement each other. But the beauty of fees is that we can take it on the ward, so we can do it with critical care patients and people that are on ventilators, and they don't have to come down. There's obviously no exposure to radiation. We get the odd person that won't consent, but actually most people do and tolerate it really well. So this is even harder to get on here than the videophoscopist. So I've only just got a little bit of a clip to show you what it looks like. So you've got the epiglottis here, which is a little flap that covers over the airway, and the vocal folds are hidden down here. This is the airway. Your esophagus is about there. This is the tongue. And this is the pharyngeal wall, and what you want to do is go over the top into there or around the edges. And it's a bit of a silly design, really, because it's very easy, if anything goes wrong, for things to go down the wrong way, as you probably experienced yourself. So what have we done with fees? We've set it up from scratch in 2021 to 2022. We purchased new equipment from charitable funding, and then we were successful in a business case to have funded clinicians to train and to carry out the procedure. It's one of the very few district hospitals to offer the service, which is great for our reputation. And all of us that are trained attend a fee supervision group, which has got Royal College advisors sitting on the panel as well. So that's really helpful for us. And again, it supports the clinical workforce, highest quality, safest care, healthcare innovation, best place to work, and clinical partnerships and networks. The results of this are a reduced waiting list for video fluoroscopy. We've developed an extended practice role previously led by doctors. We're offering 2 more instrumental assessments per week for inpatients, which has reduced waiting times. Again, developing the clinical workforce with ongoing training programs to ensure succession planning, and just generally improve clinical skills across the team. And we've also got really close links with ENT, because we need somebody to send our images to and say, help, please, we don't need this, we don't know what's going on here, please, can we have a medical opinion? So again, all the same areas that I've connected to the strategy as the previous slide. Has anybody got any questions? No? So I'm handing over to dietitians, I think. Or is it you again?
It's me again.
Yep.
But anyway, fascinating. So I'm now going to introduce Alison Osier, who is the professional lead for nutrition and dietetics and head of the dietetics service. Alison.
Thank you. Try and deal with the technology.
Just press the button.
And might be a bit lower.
Not as tall as the rest of you.
Thank you. So I'm going to talk about dietetics and some work that we've been doing in the care homes, which links very closely with the clinical services strategy, particularly around the focus on frailty, particularly around this area of sort of the innovative ways of sort of domiciliary and residential care, sort of what we're doing about that really. So within the care home setting in the nutrition and dietetics team, we've been looking at frailty and identification of it and the impact that malnutrition, but particularly undernutrition, can have. Because we talk malnutrition lots within dietetics, you'll all have heard us talking that, but actually undernutrition is really, really key with people who are frail already. So that's what the dietetic intervention's been around, is focusing on how we can improve services in our care homes currently. Moving forward, that's going to be extended, but how we can improve things. So, and that fits really nicely with this concept of the right time and the right place. So if we're looking at undernutrition rather than malnutrition, malnutrition's already happened, we're already on the back foot. So that's what we're working with. So we look at empowering staff, carers and caterers. Often in dietetics, we were dealing with people who already had a MUST score of 2+, Whereas if we can go in early, get those carers and caterers empowered, try and make sure that we've got that identified early, so people, ahead of even referring to us, are already on that sort of looking at what's going to happen next. Improving the quality of what's happening, using more food-based interventions. So we talk food first, we talk all of that stuff. You'll have heard all the dietitians talking that, but we're very much about food-based, wanting not to be reliant on supplements all the time, particularly when people are frail, and we're not talking about an intervention immediately for a clinical condition, we're talking long-term. People don't want to sit on Ensure, Fortisip for very long periods of time. So if we can get people using food and make sure the carers and caterers are online with that, we often get referrals, please can you start this person on such a supplement. Actually, there was a lot of steps that should have happened ahead of that. And we want to make sure that we've got the education of actually malnutrition and frailty and the impact of each. We also wanted to increase our student experience because frailty isn't very sexy. That's a reality. People want to do ICU, they want to do diabetes, those sorts of things. So really inspiring the new workforce around that. So we've done education and training. This has been happening for a long time, but now the focus on frailty is even more there, really pulling in that clinical services strategy. So we've been in lots of work with the homes, literally doing hands-on sessions. We've got our dietetic assistants involved in this. So trying to reduce our referrals, but just hitting people sooner. The concept of the proactive that Jenny mentioned, proactive, not reactive, is where we are with this work. Promoting good communication. So often people were seeing what was happening, their catering manager, oh, this person's meals are always being returned, this never gets eaten, but that wasn't always being fed through. So just educating the whole team. This wasn't about nurses, it wasn't about the senior carers in our care teams, it's about educating everybody. We've also been doing some audits in the care homes. So after we've done training, we've been going into individual care homes. What I should have said is that that training package tends to be delivered at one of the larger care homes, but it's accessible for anybody across the whole care home network in our area. We've then gone into individual homes afterwards and seen what impacts there's been, looked at whether or not it's been timely, whether or not we're getting the right referrals, literally looking at what must scores people have got in those homes and whether or not they should have been referred to us earlier or whether something should have happened a little bit earlier. We've also been set up a self-referral pathway because one of the issues we had was by the time we were getting the referral, it was often quite far down the line as well. So getting the staff to refer people themselves sooner. So even if we end up rejecting that referral because it's not right, we're having discussions with people. We're explaining to them why we've rejected it, but what actually intervention they can do, because there's so much that can be done using nutritious drinks, using the nourishing snacks, done lots of training around how to fortify meals, how to fortify those drinks, a glass of milk, those real basic things, but just reiterating that. So we've reduced referral timescales because it's no longer going by a GP, and that's made a real difference to the right people at the right time. We've also made our dietetic resources more accessible. Historically, within dietetics, we have a tendency, as Liz will tell you, to think we're the only people that can hand out that diet sheet. Absolutely not. So it's now available on the internet. It's not just one. There's lots of resources out there. So again, that fits really nicely with the services strategy about sharing, that partnership, being open. So making sure those resources are there for everybody. We've also got some videos that just show some basics of fortifying. We've had some of the GPs commenting that they've actually been referring people to that, district nursing teams. So it's a little bit more available, the resource out there as well. And the student placements is quite revolutionary in dietetics. It actually was a published piece of work. So our students not only spend time with us, they actually spend a day in the care homes, really supporting around nutrition in the care homes. That's actually been now started to be used to increase placement capacity across the country as well. And the next steps for us is around training of the care agency staff, because what we've found as a little bit of a sort of unknown to us really is that the training within the care homes not only has impacted on the immediate people in the care homes, it's really helped with people who are on respite or who are there temporarily. Staff have been explaining to them, the reason I'm giving you this snack, the reason I'm doing this nutritious drinks is because you are, more on the line of frailty. And so actually we've been educating some of the people for going back home as well. So it's actually had an additional impact we hadn't realised. And the next step is about trying to roll that out to the people living in their own homes, about more of the care agency training as well. And definitely more of the student work, because actually our students have found it really valuable. They've seen the impact that we can have over people who are frail and the undernutrition ahead of just being malnourished. So we're going to do a lot more student time within our care home setting. And we've had some students coming back to us saying, that was so valuable, I never expected, I just thought, didn't want to go to the care home at all, coming back saying how much they've enjoyed the experience. Thank you.
Thanks, Alison. And last but not least, by any means, is Emma Noe, who is our professional lead for podiatry and also head of service for podiatry.
Hi everybody, I got a bit carried away with my slides, so I will just rattle through them. It was really hard to link what we do to strategy. But anyway, here I go. So, we are one of, I like to say, the biggest podiatry service within nationwide. So we cover all of North Yorkshire, bar the Craven area. Sorry, Jenny, we don't go to Skipton. So we've got 30 clinic sites. I'm really not sure about that figure of square miles, because I said it the other week in a presentation. It turned out it's actually bigger than America, which it's clearly not. So it is. So I'm not going to quote it ever again. So we provide care from community clinics, GP practices, hospitals. We go to patients' homes, we go to care homes. We will go anywhere people's feet are. We work across 3 acute trusts, which I think you can appreciate the small challenge there. It's fun. So we input into HDFT, Scarborough and York, and South Tees as well. And we provide acute clinics and inpatient work into Harrogate, the Friarage in Northallerton, and York and Scarborough hospitals. We've got 25,000 patients on our caseload, and we get 250 new patient referrals a week, whether that's via healthcare professional or our self-referral route. And 24% are children and young people, which I was quite taken by when I looked at that figure. I thought it would be a little bit less. So basically, we see everybody. So this is our structure currently. I say currently, I don't know why, it's not going to change. So there's myself in head of service role. We've then got the 2 principal roles, which are in essence our clinical lead for the 2 main arms of the service. So we do high risk and wound care and biomechanics, and then we have the 4 locality teams. We've got a really, really well-established apprentice route, so we're in our 6th year now of having apprentices, so we're really starting to see the benefits of that come through. We've got 3 lots have graduated now, and they're really well integrated into teams, and fingers crossed are staying. At this very moment in time, we are fully recruited, which we've not been able to say. Even in Scarborough, Julie Walker, even in Scarborough, we've not been able to say that for a very long time. And I think that is due to the work we've done with our HEIs about providing decent student placements, bringing in the apprenticeship role and making sure that we mentor and develop staff through their career development. So what do we do? There's quite a few arms. This is where I got carried away, I'm afraid. So a bulk of our work is the core element, so it's that early intervention prevention. So we'll see a lot of people that are diagnosed with long-term conditions like diabetes, rheumatoid arthritis, try and give that early education around footwear, how to look after your feet, how to slow down any progression of disease. We've also got the MSK element, so we see a whole range of age groups, people with foot deformity, MSK injuries. We offer treatments such as footwear, orthotics. We've just brought in over the last year shockwave therapy, which we're seeing good results. We work really closely with our physio colleagues, with our orthopaedic colleagues, should people need surgery or go on to further treatment plans. Next slides are a bit grotty, sorry. Diabetes. Diabetes and progressive conditions. So these conditions impact your circulation, they impact your sensation, they are progressive. Sometimes we can't stop it. We work really closely with Vascular College, and at this point we're trying to prevent amputation. If somebody has an amputation following diabetic foot ulceration, their mortality rate is higher than some cancers. So it's serious stuff we're dealing with. We're trying to save a limb, save a life. So we're trying to prevent the ulcers, but sort of the far photo, when it's post-amputation, we're then looking at maintaining that function in that limb so that patient can get about their normal daily activities of living and have some quality of life there. We also see ingrown toenails, which are gorgeous, aren't they? So that's another bulk of the work, probably more kids there dealing with symptomatic ingrown. It's really quite satisfying element of the work. So just looking at the people we work with, it goes on and on and on. So we work across so many teams, disciplines, primary care, secondary care, other AHP professions, acute colleagues, research colleagues. We are a tiny, tiny cog in that patient's journey. We're very important, but we are a tiny cog in that patient's journey. And I think it's being mindful of that. We couldn't do a lot of our work without the support of other professions. How do we know that we're doing anything well? So we input into national audits, such as the National Diabetes Foot Audit, so that will tell us what's our mortality rate, how many people are going on to amputation, how many people. What we want is for people to heal within 12 weeks, so it measures that. And we can benchmark then against the rest of the country as to how we're doing. We benchmark quite well at the minute, especially with people coming to the service off their own back without being referred by a health professional. So clearly our education is doing something there, and our self-referral pathway is doing something as well. We also do root cause analysis on any major and minor amputations, so we can learn from that, share the learning, change things where we need to. We've got our governance structures and processes. We link in with ICB colleagues and Wyatt colleagues, so there's a regional managers group for podiatrists. That is as exciting as it sounds. We link in a lot with our professional body, the Royal College of Podiatry. They have an NHS managers steering group, which again is really exciting. But it helps with the networking, the national events, and just making sure that we are all delivering the same thing in the same way. We've also got a really well-established mentorship programme to support clinician career development during their time with us, which is evaluated really well. What we're doing at the minute, so we've just had a massive service review. We've just looked at all our contracting. We've managed to get it under one contract, which is so much easier across the whole patch because before we had 3. We've just integrated all our admin teams, so there's a better central point of access for patients, and that really improves their journey. What I'm really excited about is the virtual placements. So we've been tinkering with New College Durham for a while, using head-mounted tablets so that students can join us by MS Teams from up in Durham into one of our high-risk or biomechanics clinics. They can talk to the patient, they can ask questions, the patient can hear them, can talk back, and they can observe the treatment. And it's evaluating really, really well from both clinical educator and student point of view. So that's something we're hoping to roll out a bit further. And then who knows, maybe we could use it for patient consultations in hard-to-reach places like nursing homes, domiciliary environments. It's all very exciting. We're constantly reviewing our System 1 offer and the templates that we use and the data we can get out of there to evidence what we're providing, and also reviewing the contracts and commissioning. Outcome measures is a little bit trickier. When you lose a leg, how do you demonstrate that that is a good thing? Is it around that it has actually improved that patient's quality of life? They're not coming for weekly appointments. They don't have a necrotic foot anymore. So that needs a lot of work at the minute. And we're doing a lot around colleague wellbeing. So we've just rolled out wellbeing days for all teams. We've rolled out team charters. What we're going to add in to our mentorship offer is more joined up clinical supervision, because that's something we're really not good at the minute. We tend to be quite reactive with that. If something's going wrong, we'll peer supervise, but it should be, I think we'd agree that's the case in most AHP professions, is that we're not hot on the peer supervision at the moment. And that is about us. Liz.
Thank you. That's amazing. Those pictures explain why I became a dietitian. I love it. So, as you can see from just those presentations, that's only a few of our professional groups, but we're really a diverse group. We've got multiple different skill sets. We've got enhanced and advanced practice skills, advanced leadership skills. We really work across the board in lots of different variety of locations with different teams. We want to work as part of a multi-professional team, so we're enablers for the rest of the services. Our values, our skills and abilities underpin multiple aspects of the clinical services strategy. And hopefully you've enjoyed the presentations, even if some of them were a bit gory. Any questions from any of you or for the panel, you're most welcome to ask. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Liz, and team, I should say. Any questions for colleagues? Julie.
Thank you. It's really hard being the last to go at the end of a long day, and I think you've kept us engaged and really appreciate that. And allied health professionals, you do make up such a big part of the organisation, and I think you just showcased in those 3 different allied health professionals was really good, because we know so much about physio and OT, but actually to cover those specialities I think was really well done, and I really enjoyed it, so thank you.
Any other questions? No? Okay, so yes, reflections from me. Thank you so much. I think one of the things that you've just very clearly demonstrated is the multidisciplinary approach that we have across AHPs. And actually, you know, the risk of that leadership within there getting lost in the rest of the professions that we interface with. So it's really important that we've been able to see just the level and breadth of things that you cover. So thank you so much for showcasing that, and well done. Thank you. Okay, I am going to do a few closing remarks. I don't know why my photographs on everything don't look like that anymore, which is part of the problem. I think I need an updated photo. So just some reflections for today. Thank you to everybody who has stuck with us throughout the day. I think it's been an absolutely fabulous reflection of the amazing work that happens across the organisation, and just reminded me how amazing the people I work with actually are. So massive thank you and well done to all of you. There's a couple of things that have stuck in my mind which might just take us back to this morning. So 149. And the 4-minute rule for those of you who might have forgotten what we need to do when we walk in the front door tonight. I think just hearing and reflecting on some of the presentations, just that demonstration of the impact as people that we have on people, and whether that's the patients that we are caring for, the families that we're looking after, or just each other, the impact that we have on one another is huge, and we should never underestimate that. And I think we've seen the impact, the positive impact of that today. I think we've also heard about throughout all presentations just how important having the right staff with the right skills in the right place at the right time is. And I think, again, we're on a really positive journey with that, and there's lots for us still to do, but there's an awful lot of really good work that's happening. Not least of which the advanced practice framework, and I think that's generated a lot of interest and a lot of discussion throughout the breaks and things today, so we will keep everybody updated on developments with that. I think, as I said about the AHP presentations, just that opportunity to hear the breadth of ways that services are supporting the delivery of the clinical services strategy already, even though we've got work to do in developing that further, is just a massive achievement. And just a special thank you to our most inspirational speakers of the day, Jolly, Thomas and Prathesh. Thank you so much for coming up and sharing the experience that you've had at HDFT and what that's meant to you, because it's meant an awful lot to us to hear that today. I think that if I can take you back to my comment at the beginning and just that quote that I read out, I just want to read it out again. Careers do not take place in isolation. They require webs of enabling relationships. Your career success is not just a function of your talent and hard work. It also depends on the culture of your organisation, your leaders and your peers. And I think we've all demonstrated today we've got a massive amount of leadership in this room, as well as a massive number of peers, and just continuing to keep that in the back of our mind about how we support and lift each other up throughout these next few months, actually, because with the national picture, with the 10-year plan that Duncan referred to in his video and with the clinical services strategy, the time really is now for nursing, midwifery and allied health professionals. And we really need everybody to step up and lead in this space around what we need to do to take the strategy forward for HDFT. I will support you in that, HDFT will support you in that, but we need everybody in the room to be part of it. So just the final things from Monique's presentation. Back your talk, listen to understand, build trust and confidence, and excel at what you are great at, and you are great at a lot, even if you might not have written all 5 of those things down. So thank you again for today, and safe journeys home.